So, what do? You open your mouth and nothing comes out. Not because you don't have the words, but because none of them quite fit anymore. It's a normal question, but this time it doesn't land like one. And then you realise this isn't a 5-second answer anymore. That moment usually lands about 20 minutes into a barbecue. We talk about the weather and the drive over has run dry, and you're standing there with a paper plate of lukewarm sausages, and a friend of a friend swirls the ice in his glass and looks you in the eye. In the old world, that was an easy exchange. You had a title, a firm, a quick answer people could understand straight away. But when you're out of the system, that shorthand is gone. You realise you don't have an answer that fits the room. If you were 30 and you said you were between roles, people would nod. There's a social narrative for a 30-year-old in transition. If you were 65, you'd say you were retired. The conversation would move straight to the rising cost of a pint or golf handicaps. But in your 50s, there's a type of social awkwardness that follows the honest answer. You try to be direct. You say, actually, I'm taking some time to recalibrate, seeing what the next move looks like. What's their face? There's that slight tilt of the head, the British tilt. The eyebrows knit together for a fraction of a second. It's the same look people give when they hear a distant relative has a persistent illness. They offer a sympathetic, right, well, I'm sure something will turn up. And then the conversation just dies. The friction isn't coming from you. It's the fact that the social script for a man our age assumes absolute continuity. If you aren't in the system, people don't know where to put you. You've become a null value in the conversation. Then there's the Wednesday night down the pub. You're with the same four blokes you've known for 30 years. For 3 decades, you've traded stories about nightmare clients and mental KPIs. But tonight, you're just listening. One of them is moving about a project that's gone over budget. Another is having a go at a new computer system. They're leaning into the stress because the stress is their proof of relevance. And you realise you don't have a story to offer back. You aren't being chased for a missing timesheet. You haven't had 3 automated emails telling you to complete a mandatory training module by Friday. You don't have a crisis to report. There's a shift in the rhythm. It's not that they're excluding you, it's just that you're not giving the conversation anything to move on. The final point of friction is the Sunday dinner. This is where your adult kids or your siblings try to help. They ask how the job hunt is going. They're looking for a start date, a sign of movement. To them, time spent not working is a gap, a hole in the fabric of your life that needs to be stitched shut. But from where you're standing, it doesn't feel like a gap. It feels like a teardown. You're looking at the structure of your working life and realizing that some of what you were running for over 30 years doesn't quite fit anymore. The friction happens because they want a result. You're still busy auditing the damage. When that silence happens, whether it's at the barbecue or over dinner, your first instinct is to fix it. You start over explaining. You talk about the recruiters you've spoken to or the online course you're doing. You find yourself working quite hard to manage their discomfort. You're trying to give them enough information so they can place you back into a category they recognise. You want to see that soft look disappear. But the more you try to bridge that gap for them, the more you realise you're performing a script you don't actually believe in anymore. You're talking about getting back to normal when you know that the version of normal they're looking for doesn't exist for you anymore. The pause isn't really about you. It's what happens when a familiar script stops working. When the old answer isn't there, the conversation just stalls. Most people aren't being rude. They're just searching for a category to put you in and finding that the folder's empty. Most of us can remember the first time that that question, what do, stopped being easy. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No one was rude. It was just a slight pause where there didn't used to be one. A flicker of static in the conversation. You spend a lot of energy trying to bridge that gap for other people. You try to make them feel comfortable with your situation by giving them a version of the truth they can handle. But the more you do that, the more you realise that the discomfort belongs to the system and not to you. Once you notice that friction, you can't unsee it. You realise that the world expects you to be in or out, with nothing in between. But the friction is just the sound of the old world trying to make sense of a version of you that the old script doesn't quite recognise. Tell me about the moment the script broke for you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.